Bring in show music, please.
Hi, I'm CNBC producer Katie Kramer. Today on Squawk Pod. 4 weeks to Election Day, we check in with words and messaging guru Frank Luntz on Vice President Kamala Harris's media blitz.
She is taking pages out of the Republican playbook.
And what candidates' messages are getting to voters.
It's actually Donald Trump who's ducking debates and ducking that interview on 60 Minutes that he had said he would do and then backed away from.
Cleanup in hurricane-hit North Carolina. We check in on the ground with Congressman Chuck Edwards.
We've seen widespread damage beyond anything these mountains have ever seen.
Plus, a shocking story about a popular kids' online game.
I mean, this is pretty remarkable.
The threat of predators in Roblox.
Public bathroom simulator vibe is the name of one of the rooms.
All that and much more today. It is Tuesday, October 8th, 2024. Squawk Pod begins right now.
Stand Becky by in 3, 2, 1. Cue it, please.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Squawk Box right here on CNBC. We are live from the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. I'm Becky Quick along with Joe Kernen and Andrew Ross Sorkin, and here we go.
We have an update now on Hurricane Milton. According to the latest release from the National Hurricane Center, it remains an extremely powerful Category now 4 storm with maximum sustained winds of 155 miles per hour. It's moving towards the coast of Florida's peninsula now at 12 miles per hour, expecting to make landfall there. That's going to happen tomorrow night. Forecasters say fluctuations in intensity are expected, but they do think that Milton will be extremely dangerous hurricane through landfall in Florida.
Have you watched the evacuations that have been taking place? I mean, cars trying to get out.
Get the hell out, yeah.
Hours and hours of traffic, gas stations running out of gas along the way. It's way tougher to follow through with these orders to evacuate than it seems just on the surface.
I hope it goes on land as a 3, but you can't predict these things.
Former Google CEO Eric Schmidt saying it is time for us to fully invest in AI infrastructure because he says climate goals are too lofty to reach anyway. Speaking at an AI summit in Washington last week, Schmidt addressed concerns about the massive amount of energy needed to power artificial intelligence. He said there are ways to curb the negative effects that AI can have on the environment, but he thinks those will be swamped by the enormous needs of this new technology. When pressed by presenters, he said he thinks we won't hit some of the climate goals anyway because we're not organized to do it, and he'd rather bet on AI solving the problem on the other end of it than constraining AI and having the problem.
That's so weird.
Well, there's an interesting sort of group of people, by the way, including Elon Musk and others, who say that long term, their view is that the solution to climate change is not necessarily going to be putting less carbon in the atmosphere per se. It's going to be figuring out how you're going to take it out of the atmosphere later. And the argument that he's making effectively is that AI is going to help the discovery process, potentially, I think, I don't want to put words in his mouth, of that. Meaning nobody's figured out how to do it yet, but that maybe once AI, I don't know if it's sentient, Joe, but is smart enough, it'll help.
I think we can solve a lot of problems.
The solution.
That if it comes down to it, we're obviously a globe right now that depends totally on fossil fuels for commerce and everything else. So we really don't have any choice other than to deal with it.
I will say technology usually solves the problems that we think we hit up against.
And it's almost, you could almost group it with other Malthusian worries that have never come through.
That's what I was just saying. And technology usually is what solves all of
them. Like we're going to run out of whatever, which we never run out of because it just, the more you use it, the more it makes sense economically to get more, and then you have more. And then when the asteroid comes and we send...
Well, but then you'd have to say that, Saudi Arabia, you say to yourself, okay, Saudi Arabia with its 2030 plan, does that make any sense if that's true, right? They're trying to effectively, wean their way off of fossil fuels, right? And reimagine their entire economy.
I think they're trying to diversify.
Any young people have normal jobs. I mean, they have their own issues with being addicted to all that oil. They need an actual economy, which they're trying to
diversify and create.
Right, exactly.
check out shares of Roblox. That stock right now down by about 6.8%. This comes as Hindenburg Research is disclosing a short position in the stock. It's releasing a report explaining its rationale. In that report, it says that it suspects the company's metrics are wildly inflated and says that the company is either misleading or outright lying to investors about its key metrics. It also describes the platform as what they call a pedophile hellscape for kids and says that it easily found chat rooms where people were exchanging child pornography. I'm just looking into the report at this point. This is Hindenburg again, a short seller, saying they've taken a short position. After we found a username, they say, we listed our age as under 13 to see if children are being exposed to adult content. By merely plugging adult into the Roblox search bar, we found a group called Adult Studios with 3,334 members openly trading child pornography and soliciting sexual acts from minors.
Did you see the Jeffrey Epstein?
They said they registered as a child, and then they were also able to access games like Escape to Epstein Island and Diddy Party. We found over 600 Diddy games, including Survive Diddy and Run from Diddy Simulator.
Fan accounts called Jeffrey Epstein Supporter. I mean, this is pretty remarkable.
This is since September 2nd, 2024. Third-party monitor Moderation for Dummies has reported around 12,400 erotic role-play accounts on Roblox. They include everything from rape and forceful sex fetishes to underage users willing to do anything.
I got one that, oh my goodness, you see this?
Stock is now down 9%.
Palestine and Israel hangout allows kids of all ages to purchase bombs and knives and attack each other.
The CNBC is reaching out to Roblox for comment on this, but the stock was already moving beforehand because of, again, a short seller's report, Hindenburg, saying that this is what they found when they launched onto it. That stock at this point down by about 10%.
Public bathroom simulator vibe is the name of one of the rooms. You know, we've had the CEO, David Baszucki, on this broadcast for many, many times since the company went public. My kids, including my daughter, 7 years old, plays on Roblox.
What's I don't even understand that one.
I don't know. I was under the impression, I will say, that you had at least had heard historically that they had better controls on their platform than everybody else. But this is damning and raises a million questions.
So we should point out that, again, this is from a short seller that says they have a short position in the stock before they put this report out. But these will be things that will be able to be verified or not.
But I'll say the other piece of this, which is very interesting, is they're even just suggesting, putting aside what is horrific in terms of some of the these chat rooms that they found and games that they found, they're claiming effectively that some of the traffic is manipulated, meaning they're finding traffic coming out of Vietnam and other places that they think is being led by server farms and other things. So this is going to be big news this morning.
The stock's down by 10.75%, and Squawk Box will be right back.
Cheese will be next.
More Squawk Pod is coming right up with pollster and political strategist Frank Luntz on Kamala Harris's strategy going into the last few weeks before the election.
Took a while, but she's now taking the tough interviews, getting asked the tough questions, and being challenged. It's actually Donald Trump who's ducking debates and ducking that interview on 60 Minutes that he had said he would do and then backed away from.
This is Squawk Pod.
Up and Andrew, Q.
You're watching Squawk Box right here on CNBC. I'm Andrew Ross Sorkin along with Joe Kernen and Becky Quick. So the Harris-Walz campaign engaging in a media blitz this week. Here's Vice President Kamala Harris on CBS's 60 Minutes.
My plan is about saying that when you invest in small businesses, you invest in the middle class, and you strengthen America's economy. Small businesses are part of the backbone of America's economy.
But pardon me, Madam Vice President, the question was, how are you going to pay for it?
Well, one of the things is I'm going to make sure that the richest among us who can afford it pay their fair share in taxes. It is not right that teachers and nurses and firefighters are paying a higher tax rate than billionaires and the biggest corporations.
Joining us right now is pollster and political strategist Frank Luntz, who watched that interview along with millions of Americans. What was your initial reaction to somebody who focuses on words and And disposition, perhaps?
Well, first off, she is now, took a while, but she's now taking the tough interviews, getting asked the tough questions, and being challenged. 60 Minutes did an outstanding job trying to get answers from her. And second, it's actually Donald Trump who's ducking debates and ducking that interview on 60 Minutes that he had said he would do and then backed away from. So she gets credit for that. Third, and I think this is important, she asked the question about fair share, pay your fair share. This is language from the Democrats that has gone back 25 years now to Al Gore in 2000, and no one has yet defined, and Harris does not do it here, what exactly is fair share. What is the rate, how much, how you pay it, and it's a legitimate question. I want to give her credit for one important use of language. In the convention, the Democrats talked about freedom. That's normally a Republican issue. Here, she calls herself, asserts, I am a capitalist. That's something you expect to hear from the Republican candidate, not the Democratic candidate. And now she's focused on small business, which has always been a Republican issue. Andrew, she is taking pages out of the Republican playbook. She sounds, if you just listen to these general statements, she actually sounds like a moderate Republican. So the challenge for the Trump campaign is to stop with these incessant character attacks and challenge her on the specific issues and her claims, because let me tell you something. According to the New York Times most recent poll, she is beginning to cut through. It's going to be up to Republicans to challenge.
That's where I wanted to go with this next. So you're in the polling business, and you're in the business of reading polls, if not your own. So what do you see happening in the polls in the swing states in particular? Not the national polls necessarily, but in the swing states where both of these candidates are spending virtually all of their time.
And it makes sense because every one of those swing states is within the margin of error. Every one of those swing states could end up in the Harris camp or the Trump camp. That this election with exactly 1 month to go is so darn close. And I can't find a time, a historical precedent for this, when the two candidates 30 days out were almost identical, if not identical, in the states that matter. That you could literally have a 270 to 268 situation in the Electoral College.
But let me ask you this. Part of the issue over the last at least 2 cycles that we've had, there's been an undercount on Trump votes, right? When I talk to people at a cocktail party and people say, well, who do you think is going to win? Invariably, someone says, well, the polls look like they're the same. But, over the years, if you go back 2016, you go to 2020, Trump was always undercounted. Therefore, if they look like they're apples to apples right now, I'm going to give it to Trump, or at least that would be the prevailing view. I don't know if that's your prevailing view. I don't know if you look at the betting markets. I don't know what you think is the right metric to actually have a better understanding of where we really are. Or maybe you think the polls have gotten so good, they've just gotten better over the years.
No, I don't. And it's part of my industry. It's one of the reasons why I focus on language rather than the polling. And also, I don't think it's as important to predict the winner. It's more important to understand what the winner will do. Let's talk about substance, not about who's ahead and who's behind. I've been using sessions with undecided voters now for the last 3 months. I've got 3 different groups that are tracking them, and I've seen them move. They moved away from Joe Biden in an extensive way. They moved towards Kamala Harris after that first debate. And right now, they're asking, who's telling me the truth? Andrew, the most important value right now is not about accountability. It's not about tax rates. It's not those details. Which candidate do I believe is telling me the truth, and which candidate will have my back over the next 4 years? Others have decided it's too close to call.
Other than the billionaires with this that don't pay taxes on their stepped up profits on the founders, that's an absolutely false statement that the 1% pay a lower tax rate than the people she's saying. That's absolutely false. And she is finally, not going on with The View and maybe taking some tough interviews, but the answers were not impressive. Yesterday, I know Elon Musk is now, the Antichrist to the left, but there's no point in criticizing Kamala Harris. She's simply the face of a much larger machine. She'll say whatever's on the teleprompter. She'll get stuck if the teleprompter breaks. It's whoever controls the teleprompter who's in charge. And who is that? It's not any one mastermind. And that's the feeling I get. It's almost like a Politburo.
Elon Musk was saying that as a reason for why Kamala Harris hasn't been tried. So it was fascinating.
You impressed with her answers?
No, but am I impressed with what Elon Musk said yesterday about that? No.
You're not impressed that he can make the point she can make the point that there's a Politburo and this could be Biden, this could be Harris. I mean, I don't know if she even knows what she's saying when she's saying a lot of these things. And you're swallowing it hook, line, and sinker?
No, it's not that I'm swallowing it. I'm telling you what the public is saying. In the end.
Well, you're saying that the public believes that when she says that the rich don't pay their fair share, that's patently false.
Yes,
what she's saying, the 1% pay much higher rates than the people that she's talking about.
But what is reality?
She didn't say 1%. She said billionaires.
I know, but it's not going to solve the problem.
But, hold on.
That may be the case in terms of the ultimate number, but in terms of actually people feeling like the system makes sense.
People do pay their fair share, except for maybe what are you talking about, 100 people? So she's got to put all the wealthy people in the same.
But it doesn't make what she said untruthful. It actually makes what she said truthful. That's
for 100 people.
Right, so but you just said what she said is not true.
The 1% are under undertaxed. We have a very progressive tax system. And the idea that the rich do not pay their fair share is not true. Unless you're just talking about the rich, you mean 100 people or 200 people.
I think we're talking about more than that.
Okay, 500 people.
She said billionaires, but your point is a fair one.
Well, that's the only point to make, because we don't care about those. I mean, maybe you do care about the 500, but that's not the issue. That's not the issue. We have a fair tax system in this country. Teachers, they're not paying more than rich people, except for
except for the richest.
Okay,
except for the richest people in the country who by the way, would pay the most into the system.
And one of the richest people who did sell stock paid $11 billion of taxes in 1 year.
Correct. And I think that's fabulous. I'm not. Nobody's criticizing.
I hope it is.
Nobody's criticizing him for that. But we've had conversations about taking loans, which you've agreed to. You've agreed that it's unfair
and it's
for people to take loans out against these things.
Anything. It's not going to. But Frank.
But if the tax, we've talked about this.
Frank, these interviews are not going well on 6. That did not go well on, at least from what I could tell on 6. Did you think it went well?
So there's one point. The fact that she did it and Trump did not.
Trump did it last year, and Leslie, or 4 years ago, Leslie Stahl never apologized
and he walked
for
out.
Absolutely lying.
And he
absolutely lying about the laptop. Never apologized.
Let me get one more point in here, because immigration is a key dividing issue. And the fact is, she makes claims about immigration that you should be addressing, that we've been focused on it, we've got solutions. And the fact is, immigration got much worse under Biden than it did under Trump. The key element here are facts, a fact-based approach, which would justify the comments that you all been making. You have to draw the comparison. Where were we on January 20th, 2021, and where are we today? And Trump is not making that comparison. Harris is at least getting heard now. She's taking the tough questions. And let's be honest with your viewers. Up to now, she did not do that. Now she's doing it.
No.
Up to now, she did
50 days.
Okay, but she's doing it, and she deserves.
Well, she's been forced to it. You're looking at polls. Look at some of the betting sites now.
I see that. Look, it's a dead even race, and she's making the right
I think
decision.
That's the scariest thing that Frank said, is that if it's 270 to 268 in the Electoral College, how do we react when you've seen such clear misses, near misses in the past with hanging chads with Bush?
I think Andrew's right about this. Unless the polls have gotten better, if she's tied, which was a recent, I forget which was that, a YouGov, she was tied after being up 4. If it's a tie or she's only up 2, it's going to be a major problem in the electoral, in the swing states, Frank. Unless the polls are suddenly better.
No, and right? Let me be clear. I'm not backing.
You're still worried about the cats, people eating cats, which they did down in Venezuela.
Okay.
I'm glad you finally got over that.
Well, the issue right now is,
I thought you were going to cry.
The issue is affordability and immigration, and it's whichever candidate addresses those two issues is the candidate that wins. It is a jump ball. It is unclear right now, and you're correct that she is not being as specific as the voters want, but you're incorrect. At least she's begun to answer the questions.
Great. She's, we're almost going to elect her president. We know nothing about her.
Thanks, Frank.
Nice. It would be nice to answer a few questions.
Thanks, Frank.
Next on Squawk Pod, combating a storm of misinformation. As Hurricane Milton heads towards Florida's Gulf Coast, cleanup work continues across the southeast from Hurricane Helene. Efforts are ongoing to repair roads, bridges, and restore power for tens of thousands. But not everyone is getting the message that the work is happening. We hear from a reporter on the ground and North Carolina Congressman Chuck Edwards about combating rumors.
We've got some nefarious folks out there that are trying to make a name for themselves or see what they can stir up on social media.
Welcome back to Squawk Pod. The massive cleanup from Hurricane Helene continues in North Carolina, particularly the western mountain region of the state, around the community of Asheville. Flood levels there in the aftermath of Helene, the highest in a century. Rising with the waters, the dangers of misinformation. Over the weekend, former President Donald Trump suggested that the Federal Emergency Management Agency was running out of money to aid disaster relief.
No helicopters, no rescue. It's just what's happened there is very bad. They're offering them $750 to people whose homes have been washed away. And yet we send tens of billions of dollars to foreign countries that most people have never heard of.
FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell criticized these remarks.
It's frankly ridiculous and just plain false. This kind of rhetoric is not helpful to people. It's really a shame that we're putting politics ahead of helping people.
On our Squawk Box TV broadcast this morning, we heard from a local reporter in North Carolina, embedding with responders and combating rumors spreading across social media that necessary supplies or rescue vehicles were being stopped or impeded. Julia Coyne, a reporter with the Charlotte Observer, has been out in the field covering the hurricane's devastating impact. Her newspaper has a reality check page to fact-check misinformation related to the storm.
A lot of people who are in these very isolated communities say that they haven't seen government efforts.
Our Becky Quick spoke to Congressman Chuck Edwards of North Carolina's 11th District, which includes parts of Asheville. Here's that conversation.
And Congressman, first of all, thank you for joining us this morning. We know you're on the front lines. We know this is a horrible tragedy, but tell us where things stand right now.
Well, we got off to a slow start with getting assistance in here from our national and state agencies. They are here now in full force. We've seen widespread damage beyond anything these mountains have ever seen. Not only flooding, but trees down, homes destroyed, roads, bridges washed out, major arteries in and out of North Carolina cut off. Folks in neighborhoods that we still can't reach. Widespread power outages. I believe we still have well north of 100,000 energy customers that do not have power. Sporadic communication. It's really a desperate situation here in the mountains right now.
We mentioned that this is the worst flooding in over a century in that area. Why do you think it's taking so long, and why it's been so hard to get the rescue efforts under control there?
I can't explain why it's taken so long. Those are definitely questions that I'll be asking once we're far enough into this that I feel comfortable in pulling resources aside to begin to ask those questions. It was more than 3 days before we ever saw the first folks in here from FEMA, before we saw the first sign of any significant resources. But we're well underway now. And I'll tell you what really encourages me is the way that the mountain people here are pulling together. We see churches, civic organizations, neighbors, so many people pulling together, helping one another in a way that we've never had to do before.
Congressman, you're there on the ground. I'm watching from afar, and I look for images anywhere I can, look for stories anywhere I can. A lot of that has been coming on social media, and some of it is incredibly concerning, saying that volunteers are being turned away, that FEMA is taking, still this morning I was looking at these, that FEMA is taking and confiscating things that have been brought in. But then I looked to the News and Observer in Raleigh, the local paper there, and they put out something saying that emergency officials responding to the Hurricane Helene disaster in western North Carolina say false rumors on social media are impeding their efforts to help tens of thousands of people in need. The quote is, false information is being shared on social media channels, including AI-generated content and images. Nefarious actors and those with ill intent may be taking advantage of the situation by spreading false information. So again, you're on the ground. Can you help us understand what's really happening?
Yeah, those rumors are totally unsubstantiated, and it's so unfortunate that at a time like this, where we need to be pulling together and being truthful and working on real solutions, we've got some nefarious folks out there that are trying to make a name for themselves or see what they can stir up on social media. I'm not going to come to FEMA's defense. They've done some things that they should have done differently. No question about that. We'll deal with those issues. But the response that I have gotten has been very positive. And where there have been kinks, where I've stepped in and applied a little pressure, I've seen response.
Yeah, I know that you asked for cell towers to be brought in instantly, and once you asked for them, they were brought in. What else do you need right now?
Right now, we need still roads cleared and power restored. We've still got pockets that we cannot communicate with, so we need more and better cell service. Those are the real issues right now. We're beginning to see quite a bit of food and water and cleaning supplies and those types of things show up in large quantities, and we've got so many volunteers out there willing to help distribute those. We could always use volunteers. We could always use more resources if someone wants to send those. This is just going to take a little while to be able to reach the power stations that are not working and the folks that we can't get to. I'd be remiss too if I didn't mention that there's still a lot of missing people. We still got teams here from all over the country that are combing through rivers and cars that have been submerged and piles of debris. We're still finding hits by cadaver dogs. We're still in a recovery mode in regards to those that are missing.
Very much so. There are people who would like to help. I know it's a concern about having too many people coming in when the roads that are open, those major arteries, are kind of reserved for the emergency workers and the emergency crews to get some of these things through. Is there somewhere that you would direct people? I know the governor had mentioned the North Carolina Disaster Relief Fund. Is there a place, if people want to help, that something they could do rather than show up in person if you're worried about looting, if you're worried about making sure emergency workers can get through?
Yes, certainly, and I appreciate you asking that question. If anyone goes to my website, my official website, edwards.house.gov/helpWNC, that's edwards.house.gov/helpWNC. There's a comprehensive list of places there folks can contribute to, volunteer their time, or send resources.
There had been questions about whether House Speaker Mike Johnson would bring Congress back to increase the amount of funding that goes through to emergency. Do you know anything about whether that's going to happen at this point?
I don't think that coming back in for a special session right now is necessary. We had the foresight before we adjourned for our October work period to make sure the government was funded, but also we added $20 billion for disaster recovery. So we've got funds to get us into the initial phases of this. There's no question once we come back into session in mid-November, we're going to have to take up the issue of a supplemental and look at what needs to be done, not only here in Western North Carolina, but around the country with some of the storms we're experiencing right now.
But no question, there is emergency funding right now. And again, people can help by going to your webpage to look for the appropriate places to funnel any help that they can give.
Yes, most certainly. Thank you.
Congressman, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it, and good luck. We are watching.
All right. Thanks for your interest.
That is Squawk Pod for today. Thanks for listening. We'll include the link to Congressman Edwards' page of hurricane relief resources in our show notes today. Squawk Box is hosted by Joe Kernen, Becky Quick, and Andrew Ross Sorkin. You can tune in weekday mornings on CNBC at 6 Eastern to get the smartest takes and analysis from our TV show right into your ears. Follow Squawk Pod wherever you get your podcasts. We'll meet you right back here tomorrow.
We are clear. Thanks, guys.